Hey, and welcome. I have a video idea today that I wanted to share. And, usually I write down my ideas in my planner and I write them at the bottom, and that's usually how things go. But I started getting a little bit behind with videos. So today I was going to start from the oldest idea and then, just eventually work up. But my theory lately is that I need to stay most current and then go backwards. So my most current video idea that I got earlier today, which I had no intention of sharing until later. I was going to let it kind of marinate for a little bit, the idea, because I didn't have any intentions on sharing this with really anybody. I've only told a few people, and I feel like I'm more comfortable now with people knowing or not. I don't know how to describe it, to tell you the truth, because I'm really comfortable with everybody knowing everything. But I guess with this, since it's new, it's not comfortable because it's never really been verbalized or expressed through my words. So anyway, the topic is my experiences with spirits. And I think this is going to be a combo video in my experiences with extraterrestrials, beings. I really don't know what the most respectful term is. I kind of feel it out as I go, because I really don't want to be calling the entities that be something that they may have a preference against. But my idea is that they really don't have a preference at all, that the preference thing, the name thing, is more of a human characteristic, maybe even more so an American characteristic, because who knows, in other countries there may be terms for these things where the term means that there is no term. So from an American perspective, with other cultural backgrounds included in my ancestry, you can call it, that's where my perspective is coming from. So I'll start with spirits. When I was younger, around 5, my best friends, who were my neighbors and elderly, were murdered, and I was there to kind of see what happened. And not exactly, I didn't see the actual murder occur. I saw the before, and I was nearby when the during was happening. And then my mom and I went in and found the after. And so they were the people who taught me how to paint and draw and basically just do art, because they were artists. And now I'm an artist. So, but they were murdered, and after they were murdered, I didn't have too many thoughts that I could have, remembered. It wasn't until I had a bit of a pre-awakening with a person who was awakened that tapped into me, I guess. And then about 7 years later, we reconnected, and they introduced me spiritually to my neighbors, who turned out to be a unit of my spirit guides, I guess is the name for it. I'm really not sure how to call it. I hear people talking about spirit guides, and I feel like a lot of these terms have been coined as what they are, but they're beginning to sound a little cliche to me. But I'm also very new to the community, so it could be just me being judgmental. So I think it is. And because I really don't care what anything is called. If it gets the point across, so be it. It's just when you're coming into these spiritual communities brand new, and then being the kind of person I am, which is judgmental sometimes and skeptical initially, which is something I acknowledge and I try to work against. It's just, I know that that's what I do. My first initial reaction is like, I don't want to, and oh, that's not right. And then it's kind of like, oh, you're real cool, huh? So that's just, I guess, a reflex that I've had. So, yeah. So the introduction to them was basically like, yeah, you know they're nearby, right? And my reaction was like, what? And then like almost instantaneously, like I just knew that they were around. Next kind of encounter or experience that we shared was when I was in my youngest son's room and he was sleeping, and I noticed that there was a really dark presence, evil feeling presence in his room. I'd been going through a divorce, and so after, months of abuse and fighting and just mental stupid stuff, you get worn down to a point where hardly anything bothers you. And so that's where I was. Usually I was really scared. I didn't know that they were with me back in the city and in the house where it happened, or the house, that was the neighboring house to where it happened, because I'd always hide under the covers for years because I knew something was there. But I was afraid. And so, but when I was in my son's room, fast forward, back to where I was in the story, I felt the dark presence, but then immediately I wasn't scared because I was so worn down, and I was just to a point of like, I mean, honestly, fuck it, like what, like let's talk, I've already been living with this person who's been more than hell on earth. So what do you want to talk about? And my feeling was I wanted to talk to the evil spirit, and immediately God put something in my heart, was like, don't go there. And immediately I learned, like, you don't try to be Mother Teresa to the evil entities. It's just not the same as dealing with somebody who may be human and hurt and need, like, even a killer who may need some sort of rehabilitation. It's not the same. But immediately following that little block of experiences that happened, like, one after another really quickly, I immediately knew that they were there. There was three. A man, his wife, and his daughter. When they were murdered, the man and wife were in their 80s or so, and the daughter was like in her 60s, I think. I don't remember the exact ages, but I remember that the man was quite elderly. So, and just in case people are wondering, they got butchered to death with a butcher knife. So, yeah. But, we spoke about it that night because, like, the night that I was introduced, actually, because, and I'm sorry if my stories are choppy. It's kind of how my mind thinks. I write the same way. Like, it's just all over the place, and I try to keep up with myself. So I'm sorry. Maybe that's why I'm looking to be a programmer, because I think that's how my mind works. But we spoke that night because I spent so many years being so upset that they died the way that they died, especially being the ages that they were. And I was really, like, paralyzed, like, when I had to think about speaking with them, because I just felt so bad inside, But then we had kind of like an exchange of information where basically was like, that's so over, and you're not even going to understand how it was, and it doesn't even matter, and for some reason it helps now. And there's some things, when I run into them, I just know that at least at the time, if I don't understand, I accept that I don't understand. And that was one of those times, but they were basically trying to let me know, like, it's okay. Like, us here now is a whole different thing. And they're even around nowadays. It's just, that was about 6 months ago, almost. It was about 4 months ago. But I still feel really nervous, like, talking to them. And I don't have any dialogue. It's just kind of like this silent thing. Maybe it's an extension of how our relationship was when I was younger. I really don't know. I know I'm shy. I tend to freeze up with some things, and that's when my cowardly side will kind of surface, like, I'll run away until I'm like, basically like, fuck it. I'm just gonna do it, I don't, fuck, and just, it's like really one of those things that happens when I have to like man up. So, yeah, that was one of the spiritual encounters. And rewinding back to Pittsburgh, my mom had a lot of experience in the house that we lived in. It was our house, the neighbors that were murdered, and then their murderer's house was right next door. Right next door was a boy, his sister, their family. His sister was my sister's best friend, and he went to the neighbors next the yard. And I was in a cove of trees back here, and he couldn't see me. And that's when I saw them go inside, and my mom came and she's like, have you seen so-and-so? And I said, yeah, they went inside together. So back to my house, that was just an extension of the story. Back to my house, and, the guy is still in jail now. So I'm 35 and I was 5 when it happened. So fast forward now, or fast forward back to the house. My mom had a lot of experiences. This was in Pennsylvania, and the Gettysburg Address and these Civil War things and war stuff. So my mom was like washing dishes when I was a really small baby, and she felt someone like tapping her. And this is a woman who came from like a line of people who all had experiences. Almost all had experiences with a lot of different entities and different things, and there's a whole lot of stories behind her. So this is my mom's kind of pseudo story that I was there for, but not old enough to remember. So she thought I was the one that was poking her, and I was in my crib, and she was like, she can't walk. And then she felt it again, and when she turned around, she saw a soldier. She recognized him by, I think, the hat and the clothes that he was wearing, and it had the little buttons going down his suit. And they just sat there and they kind of looked at each other. She said she could see him, but she couldn't make out like his eyes. And then it happened, like they were there together for about 5 or 6 seconds, and then he just disappeared. There was another time where my uncle came to visit, and it was a 3-story kind of antique house. And 2 things that happened in the attic. My dad's office was up there, and either my sister or my uncle, I think both. I think my sister went upstairs to the attic to get my uncle. And on the way down, my dad's office started going like electrically haywire. Like the phone started ringing, the typewriter started typing. This was in the 80s, typewriter. The computer was turning on and off. The TV was turning on and off. The lights were turning on and off. And it was just like all at once, And then another time was in that same attic. It was pretty big, and there was a trunk, and it was like, I don't know, 3 or 3.5 feet by about 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet. I guess 1.5 feet. So like maybe 3.5 by 1.5 by 1.5. But it basically was pretty big, and it was full, and it slid from one end of the place to the other, back and forth. And that was something else. Turns out the people in that house they died, and there were things that happened. I choked on a donut in that house, but I was being a pig. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything, but that was my personal experience that happened when I was about 8 or 9. So and then there was the ballet dancer. My mom looked in a doorway and she saw a lady in like a ballet tutu, and she was just there for a little bit. And so there were other little things that happened, but that whole area was kind of like my experience with spiritual beings. Now, the most current experience I had came through a dream, but I had a friend who used to tell me that she received a lot of messages in dreams, and I couldn't relate to where she was coming from because that had never been something that happened to me. And so let me help this whole situation. So I had a dream about, I wouldn't say a month ago, but maybe 3 weeks. And in the dream, I was in the place that I was actually living. That doesn't happen to me in dreams, and that's kind of like where the first indicator that it was a message, you know, what the first indication that it was a message was. In the dream, I was laying on the couch, which I was doing. I was taking a nap, and in the dream, I woke up from the nap and I went to go sit in the kitchen on top of a table that's kind of low, and it has a Persian rug on it. So I sit there and I do work a lot. But then I saw in my dream a stack of papers that were on that table by me, by the place I was sitting, and the papers started moving on their own. And the dream felt really real. And I was like, oh shit, they're trying to get in contact with me. And I just went back into like that fear mode, because it's really like, I don't know, intimidating for me. Even though I know that something's there, I feel like they know the way that I am and try to like be cool with that. So, but I felt in the dream like this is it. Because my whole life I'm like, they're going to make a presentation soon. So I tear up sometimes with the most like vivid things. Like the stuff in my old house used to make me like, but then I got okay. But this kind of still, it's not like I'm upset. It's just a reflex. So, but I'm not crying. I don't think it's crying, but I'm looking to where I was, by the way. Like, there's a hall. And basically where I'm sitting now, low battery. Basically where I'm sitting now is where I saw this being in my dream. Because after the papers move, I stood up. Oh, it's so real. I stood up and I looked down the hall. And in this room where I'm sitting like now, is where this being was, and it was like an outline of a being, and within the outline radiating, I mean not within but outside of the outline, like let's say this is it, coming out from the edges of the outline of that being was like a black light behind them. Not a black light like the ones that, you know, used to drink to in college. Maybe just me, with the fuzzy posters that you got from Spencer's. but it was like, you know, it's like if there's a light behind somebody and it's kind of like radiating out. Imagine if that same light was pitch black and the outline of the person, them, you see right through them, but the outline is like a light is behind a being, and they were just standing there like that. And I was like, and they had this energy that was like angry, and I was like, oh fuck. And so like I fell to the ground and I started screaming, and I started screaming out prayers like immediately, because it was like real. It was like what I would really do in life. That's why I really feel like I was there, but it was a different kind of like dream. And so I started praying, and then finally like I felt something from this presence saying, like a feeling of like, no, it's okay. But they wanted to deliver a message, and I believe that they were angry about something, and I told them that I would do my best. I still don't know what the message is supposed to be now. And then like that, everything was over. And I woke up, and in the transition from being asleep to waking up, they told me everything's going to be okay. Because with the divorce from my husband, like I've lost like everything. And so I've had to start over, and it's been really hard, but it's been really informative. But sometimes you get kind of like low. And so that person in the dream, it was like, boom, everything's going to be fine. And I woke up, and it was like the dream was still happening, and just like the event was over. So yeah, that was pretty intense. And then my mom's mom around the same time, I almost forgot about these things. She had a hard life because she got meningitis, which caused her to lose her hearing. She came to Canada from Jamaica, and I think things in Jamaica were tough, and then things in Canada got tough. And then she got polio, and then she got put into a wheelchair. And my mom always felt like she was kind of like not liking Earth and stuff. But then I felt her come around and deliver a message saying that, you know, she felt guilty because when all that happened, my mom had to go to foster care with her twin brother. So she spent like 10 years in foster care. And so the message was that, you know, she just basically had messages to give my mom. And that was a really extreme experience because, I don't know, people in my mom's family have been known to make returns like that. But why they are where they are has always been kind of, you know, a curious topic for me. So, yeah. So what else happened? I've felt little things here and there, but nothing that I'm going to get too much into. And so now I'm going to go back one video to my experience with extraterrestrials.